Hello, I'm Lenora with 3 Peas in a Pod, and I'm very excited with this crazy year we've been in with COVID and everything going on. There's been a whole lot of talk about homeschooling, basically people being thrown into homeschooling. So I have a guest today, Candice Foley, and she's an Agile certified practitioner and professional Scrum Master. You might wonder, what does that have to do with homeschooling? And boy, are you going to find out. So before I introduce her, I want to say, just so you are sure to know, you can contact her afterwards at info@agilehomeeducation.com to get a free ebook after you hear this interview, because you're going to want to know more. So Candice, thanks so much for joining us, for joining me for this podcast. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Lenora.
You and I go back a long ways as friends.
Yes.
We don't know if we want to say how long. It's like several decades before we had kids and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But for those listening, Candice and I reconnected on the job because you are, what's your title?
I'm a Scrum Master.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, but I watched you with your little kids when we were growing up or they were growing up, and you homeschooled 5 children. Mm-hmm. I was too afraid to do 2. So tell me a little bit about, well, first of all, kind of with the environment this year, why homeschooling is right now a very big topic.
Right. Yeah. Before March, most people in America didn't have personal experience with home education. And a lot of them were just thrown into it with the quarantine. And so to have that sudden being thrown into it, a lot of them had no support from their schools. Some of them had full 7 hours a day to do, but a lot of them were given 10 minutes a day. And so they started researching.
Yeah, because it's been a massive change. It was a massive change for the schools, a massive change for the parents, a huge change for the children. I mean, this was, as everyone said that word, unprecedented amount of change. But again, like you said, everyone was thrown into homeschooling one way or another, whether you had little to no support or quite a bit because of who knows what about the model. Right. So you were saying, what was the statistic of who's looking into homeschooling now?
40% by a poll done by the American Federation of Children. 40% of parents are considering it after the quarantine lifts.
Wow. So coming up in this next school year, a lot of people are thinking, gosh, maybe I will continue to homeschool. And because what are some of the concerns people have and why they're thinking about it right now?
Oh, a lot of different reasons. Some of them are realizing, wow, I'm really enjoying having the time with my children, but also concerns over their kids having to wear a mask or even being exposed. There's both sides of it. Mm-hmm. Also, being some people not wanting to be forced for the immunizations and just the control. And so lots of different reasons.
Yeah, a lot of reasons to consider. And so if you are thinking about homeschooling, again, I wasn't in any kind of pandemic when my kids were in school, and I thought about homeschooling at times, and I train. I do training for a living, or did. Mm-hmm. And yet I was like, I don't think I could do that well. And then here's you who homeschooled 5 kids. Can you talk about a little bit of how you got started, what the age ranges were, and what even was that like, 5 kids?
Wow, yeah. I'd like to say the reason why I did it. I think that's a huge thing for me. I met a family with 9 kids. Like, 9. Who has 9 kids?
Not very many families.
But it wasn't just anymore. That. They were all polite, and they actually talked to adults. And I had never experienced that before. I thought, this has got to be some statistical anomaly, impossibility, that there's actually maybe 4 or 5 of them were teenagers, that they were all actually nice.
All 9 of them.
All 9 kids that could talk. And it just got my interest. I said, what is this?
Why are they so good at connecting with adults?
Right. What is this homeschooling thing? So I looked into it. By the time I had kids, I think I was pregnant with my first at the time. And by the time I actually, he was hitting about 5, I had researched a lot. I talked to maybe 30 homeschool families.
Oh, wow.
And
how'd you find them?
I started going to conventions and started meeting people. And I just kept asking because there were so many choices back then,
probably a whole
over
lot
25 years
choices.
ago. There are so many more now. It's just so overwhelming to new homeschoolers. if they don't have some kind of guidance. So I asked these 30 families and heard these same programs over and over that worked for various people. So that's what I went with to start. It got me started.
Wow. And so your kids, at what point, what was the age ranges they were in while you had them and the differences?
Oh, yeah. So 5 kids over 9 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that was a challenge,
Yeah.
having different ages, but I discovered a secret. And that's one of the things I want to share.
Wow.
A secret that made it so much easier having so many different kids.
Wow. So, when parents are homeschooling, because I know you're going to talk about several, that secret you're talking about, but what are some of the main struggles that homeschooling parents faced?
Oh, yeah. Most homeschool parents, and most of the reasons people don't homeschool is feeling that you're inadequate to the job, that you just can't do it. And I think the second is relationships in the home, because you have sibling rivalry, especially when you have more than one kid.
And they competed. And they competed with each other.
And if you add a third, then they're each competing with each other. I mean, it just multiplies. And so, but also parental authority. So relationships, what's the power struggle between the kids and the parents, or the parents and each other, over how the education goes? The third one is what and how to teach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't you say you went to a conference and felt like how many years worth of stuff you saw?
Yeah. So, oh man, one of my initial, I think the kids were the oldest was maybe 10. And I was just starting to ramp up thinking, okay, I got to get a little more serious on what I'm choosing them to do. And the older ones. And I had some things they were doing, but I thought, okay, we're getting into the, almost junior high coming up soon. And I walked around the convention and I just started going, oh, I should do that. Oh, I really should do that. And I saw program after program that was amazing, because by then, 10 years after I started having kids, I'm looking around going, oh, there's so much that's good. I've got to do this for my kids.
Probably want to do it all
of it. And I was feeling, it was bringing me down and down. I was feeling crushed. And about a half hour into that feeling, it suddenly dawned on me. It would take me 100 years to cover just the books that were in that. I'm like, I don't have 100 years with my kids. I'm not going to homeschool them.
And I probably don't want to be in school for 100 years.
But that was so freeing, because I realized if there's 100 years worth of stuff, I have some choices here. I have some ability to choose. And that's another secret I want to share, because it just, to choose, how to choose what to teach them and how to teach them. It's just, there's so much out there, you could be overwhelmed, but there are tricks on how to choose what your particular child needs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So did you want to share a story, or do you want to start going into some of those 5 things?
Oh, well, let's see. I think I can start going into a couple of them.
Okay.
I touched a little bit on, how I taught as a educator, and how it made it so much easier. The way I taught my kids, I didn't look at myself as the teacher.
Okay, that's big. How do you, because I teach employees, I teach adults, and yet I was concerned. I thought, I don't think I can pull this off. There's too much to know. I don't want to deal with all this, necessarily the homework, and it just seemed overwhelming. So how on earth did you not see yourself as the teacher with 5 kids to teach?
Well, think about it. K through 12, 5 different kids, 5 different personalities. How would I master everything? How do I master Latin and Spanish and, history and science? And, how do I master all those things and teach every single one of them? That's impossible. Yeah. And that's what a lot of parents think they would have to do, that they would have to become that master. You know who the teacher was?
Who?
The curriculum writer, the person who wrote the textbook. They're the expert.
So you have to get one where they are thinking that way. They're covering content. The content is there for them to be able to go through.
That's the deal. There's certain things to look for in choosing the curriculum. So I made sure they had good textbooks. Okay, I'm top quality. I would scour. Okay, and again, I have lots of tips on how to find the good curriculum. But having that good curriculum was key. But then I was the coach. I helped them figure out, to learn how to learn. Okay.
Wow.
If you teach them how to learn, and then I'm the tutor, I'm the coach, I'm encouraging them along the way. I'm helping them set the pace that they can handle and they can enjoy. But learning is exciting. Learning is a discovery, and it was the same for me as for them. I was learning alongside them, and they could go, and then they would hit a roadblock, and I'd help them with that roadblock.
Okay, so definitely that coach, something like you think on a sports team where like they're the ones on the field, they're the ones doing it, but you are the one coaching, exactly that, helping them know what to do. And I like what you said, how to learn, that critical thinking, because you've talked a little bit. Can you share a little bit about the differences in some of your kids?
Oh,
sorry, you don't tell too many stories on all of our kids.
Oh my goodness,
my kids.
There was a wide range. It wasn't just like, oh, we're all just, cookie cutter.
Yeah,
oh my goodness,
no child
totally
is the
different
same.
personalities. But I had one that was ready to start college at 13. He actually did. He graduated college at 16. Okay. Wow. I'm like, who gets A pluses in Calculus 1, Calculus 2, Calculus 3 at 13, 14 years old? Amazing. Got a mechanical engineering degree at 16.
Wow.
Another child was reading at a 3rd grade speed at 17.
Wow. So
but he could listen to audiobooks at double speed.
Okay, so audio,
I found ways for him to learn, but their IQs were similar. So when the one went to college early, I'm like, I don't want to put any pressure on any of the kids that they have to also
duplicate that. Why aren't you like your brother?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I didn't want any of that. But what's right for that child? And so the one that had the reading disability and the writing disability, 10 minutes to write a word. Oh my goodness. 10 minutes, such a struggle. Okay.
So I've heard of that before. Something is not connecting. They've got the IQ, they've got the intelligence. Sure. And that's what's is a big deal about what you're talking about in homeschooling, and really seeing that child, seeing that individual, because you knew, okay, this kid's really smart, but there's other ways has to get the information other ways. And your attention and finding that out, you could get him and how to learn a different way and get the same result because the IQ, like you said, was the same.
And by the way, he got a full ride scholarship for his master's degree in electrical engineering. Okay,
so electrical engineer. You got
these are the
hands-on degrees.
He has a visual, pictorial mind, and I finally realized he could read he read so slow because a picture's worth 1,000 words, and he just always had this creative mind going so fast, visualizing how to create things. And so, okay, so anyway, that's a
huge.
brief on my kids. They're all different, and the systems that I used worked for all of them for that wide range.
Well, see, and thank you for sharing those things, because I hear sometimes, and I haven't heard a ton, but I investigated a little bit myself and didn't do it. But I did not have some of the saving thoughts you had. But sometimes people have varied opinions of homeschooling. Obviously, everybody's mind has been opened up since they were kind of thrown into it, like it or not. But some people have thought homeschooling wasn't as good of an education, or they couldn't go on to the same ways to college. And yet I know each of your kids, again, you've gone on to advanced degrees and amazing schools and
all private
hard-working, very diligent students, and really found their way to that brilliance that's in them.
Right, and a lot of that was because I could tailor to the needs of that particular child.
Wow. And so you have the coach, that's one major thing is not having to know everything.
Well, I wanted to say, how that ties into my work.
Oh, right. Yes, because you are the Scrum Master, and we're going, what does that have to do with this? And Agile homeschooling.
So the Scrum Master of a software development team is the coach. It's the same thing I did for all those years homeschooling my kids. It's the same, because success in a team is success in a team. Okay.
And you had a team at home.
I had a team at home. And so at work, there have been millions, maybe billions of dollars spent on what's the best way to run a software team. Okay. We're talking highly paid individuals that are solving high technology, high complex problems. And to create an environment where they can produce what they need to produce. Okay. And it's the same principles. As I was studying to be a Scrum Master and an Agile certified practitioner, I realized these are the same principles that I did, and I want to share those with the homeschool community because they make things so much easier. So by being the coach, by being there to help them and tutor them, I was helping them learn how to learn, helping them figure out how to do the things that needed to get done.
Wow. So what you're doing, what you did in homeschooling is the same thing you're now doing in the tech industry to make a team successful. So these are tested, invested, tried principles that are being used all over the tech world right now.
Most software companies are adapting Agile principles.
Wow.
And that's why I chose the name Agile Home Education.
Wow. So coaching is number one because that's what the Scrum Master is. I used to hear these terms because I'm not in that same
So that's
same
what
area.
the homeschool parent, the one that's with them every day, is the coach.
The coach. Or in the tech world, it's called the Scrum Master.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Again, because that makes so much sense that you're going to use the same things that companies have spent a whole lot of money on, and you figured it out as a mom and being a homeschooler.
And that's why I love my job.
Yeah, because you already know how to do it. Look at that. You came in, wow, you did it with a bunch of young ones. And you've had great success. So what was the second secret?
Okay, so the second one is to have an outside advisor. Okay. It
like
might
a neighbor,
seem,
a farmer, no, excuse me.
Anybody. It can be anybody, a grandparent, a spouse, the one that's not homeschooling. It can be a friend. It can be anybody or it could be a professional teacher. Okay. Anybody that's acting as an advisor, sitting down with you, helping you. And that's, one of the tricks on helping you figure out of the whole world full of things that you could do, teach your child. Out of that 100 years, you need another adult.
You're intimidating people. There's 100 years worth of stuff.
100 years, 1,000 years worth of stuff, okay? I mean, seriously, look around the room you're in right now.
Okay.
If you studied the science behind the architecture in your house, the human body, the plants that you see, the materials you see, it would take you 100 years just to study the science in your room, okay? In the room where you are.
A lot of options.
Right now. There's a lot of options, even in science. I mean, and so
one subject.
To have another adult, okay, and here's the trick. This is what makes it so beautiful. Having that other person that's telling your kids, your students, what they need to learn. Now you're having the discussion, okay? So let's say it was you. I have a discussion. Okay, here's this particular child. Let's talk about this kid. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Here's our choices. What should we do with this kid? You have that other person you're talking to. Okay, now they help you choose what it is. And it could really be you, okay? But you had that conversation. But the kids, they're hearing it from the advisor.
So you're planning things, you're the coach when they're doing it, but they're kind of getting their assignments from the advisor?
Right. So here's how it worked, how it played out for me. And I kind of fell into this as the kids got older because there is usually a power struggle when kids become teenagers while they're homeschooling. Okay. Yeah. And the kids, I mean, you think, okay, if you've had teenagers, they're trying to grow up. They're trying to
gain some independence, but they're still kids at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And so they want to argue every little point of what needs to be done.
They
want to negotiate. Okay.
More than others.
Here's what I did. I did it pretty simple. I still wrote their list for the week. I handed it to their dad and he handed it to them.
So you kind of did all the work, but it separated the power struggle. So simple.
Separated the power struggle because then I could say to them, you're accountable to your dad. So if it was you, I would say, you're accountable to this advisor. Okay. She's a smart lady. She has helped to figure out what you need to do this month. Okay. And it's good to have a chunk of time this month. And here's your list. And let's sit down together and figure out how you're going to get this done. What's the best way to learn this? And then I'm on their side. I'm in the boat rowing with them, right? And that's the beauty of it during the work week.
With questions.
And it's beautiful. Yeah. It takes away, it's just like power struggle's gone.
Wow.
I mean, so, well, not 100%, but they're
Well,
kids.
yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So then you, whether, again, if you don't have a husband there, or you could, maybe the husband is the coach and you're the advisor, or
Sure,
you've got a grandparent or an uncle or somebody that is helps that accountability. So it splits up, reduces that power struggle. And you've also got someone to bounce the ideas off, gain some clarity. And I'm betting there's other options too, where you can even bring in some type of third party that way.
Oh, sure. Sometimes you can hire a coach for a certain amount every month, and they help you sit down and help you find out what's good for that particular child. Yeah.
Nice. And then you have a couple more, and we know you actually, again, you guys, you can get contact Candice by email. And again, just a reminder, as I can see what this is, info@agilehomeeducation.com. Email her and you can get a free ebook and learn more. And then, because Candice, again, has had great success. She's now been officially certified in the tech world, doing what she, in a lot of ways, did as a mom with 5 kids. And again, you guys, I know these young adults that have been very successful in higher education and really know how to tackle something because they've been taught how to learn, not just given information.
Right.
And I think it's very possible that had you had a quote special learning needs, they could have been given a very different perspective on their abilities because you see it over and over if you work with young people. They're also stinking smart, but you need to connect. I know one, and sometimes the way she would text, you would never know, or communicate, you would think, well, this is confusing. But if you know her, she has got such strength and intuition. It's beautiful.
Right.
So you got to pay attention to the individual.
Yeah, but that's a personal story too, because I was in special ed for my reading struggles, and so one of my kids inherited that a little worse than I had it. But this is
thank you. You're welcome. No,
this is what happened to me. Is I moved in the 8th grade, and somebody forgot to pass that on with me.
So you didn't.
That right in the middle at Christmas time. And I, right at the holidays, the break, I moved from Nevada to Washington. And somebody forgot to say I was in special ed reading. And the other thing that happened.
And so did that help you?
Well, because in my old school, I was one of the dummies.
Oh,
okay.
You weren't, but
see,
you sure
I know what
felt
it's like.
That way.
I know what it's like to be the special ed kid.
Wow.
But I had just had a teacher the year before I moved recognize I could do math. And so she bumped me up into a higher class. So when I moved schools, I went from being considered one of the dummies to Washington.
No, they didn't say that. You just felt that way?
I mean,
felt
clearly,
that way.
I mean, kids
teased.
teased. No, the kids teased. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So, and yeah, I felt, I know. And then I moved to the other school, and suddenly I'm one of the geniuses because I'm a year ahead in math.
Wow.
And
so
I
what
went,
that did for your
I went,
self-esteem?
what? No, I realized, I'm the same person. And so I've always realized that, there are a lot of kids that are stuck in that cycle of special education. There's a lot of good schools that work really hard to help them, but there's a lot that have been just missed. And I do think that home education really can help the students that have discrepancies. And there were times when a couple of my kids were 3 years ahead in math, because I love math, okay, and 2 years behind in English. And
your strength kind of fed their strength,
but also just where they were. But then they would bump it up 3 years just in a couple of months. They just were ready. They hit a point and they accelerated. So
yeah, I know even with my 2, and they were in traditional school, and they were in some private schools when they were littler because of things I really wanted, and later they were in public school. But I know one of them, just picked up everything so fast, and the other one, and boy, they were so different. One would see, the one that didn't pick up things as quickly at the beginning had a profound imagination, saw everything in full color, where the other one's like, hey, I can barely imagine a stick person. But it was what was the easy button with certain academics, but yet a slightly different timing, and then boom, it would click for the second one, and she was just as stinking smart. So you have to know that individual, and that, I don't mean to be dogging schools at all, because there's so many different types and types of schools and teachers, but knowing that individual, helping plug into their strengths is huge. And you do have that opportunity with homeschooling. But like, I know for me, if I was to ever consider that again, which I'm not going to go through that phase of life again, kind of glad about that. But gosh, if I'd have known some other ways, I would have considered certain other things. Although thankfully we had some great teachers, which is a big key. I'm a huge advocate personally of parents having a lot of choices because I care so much about that individual young person and their learning. And sometimes when a school knows you have a choice, they have to step it up in ways. And I'm not to say teachers work incredibly hard.
So hard.
And they have so many students. Oh my gosh. So the last thing I want to do is tell a teacher they're not working hard enough, because they are working hard. So there's a lot going on.
So much time spent just trying to crowd control. It's just really hard for those teachers. Sometimes they have so many distractions, so many different papers to grade, and oh my goodness, it's hard. I think for me though, one of the biggest things was home education was discovery. It was discovery for me. It was discovery for my kids. And, you know, public education for me was just a drudgery. It was lots of wasted time, lots of time waiting in lines, looking up at the clock as the second hand went, zoning out of teachers lecturing, and just not being. I remember. I
heard about that, especially from one of my kids.
I remember
just move on.
After graduation saying, what did I just learn? I could not actively remember anything except for the Schoolhouse Rock songs.
that was Saturday morning television.
I know. So I'm like, how what did I just learn? And you know, and yet that's again another reason that it took a lot of the freedom, gave me a lot of freedom to say, okay, I can choose what I'm teaching this particular child. And my, 5 secrets for homeschooling, they help to hit those 3 things that most homeschool parents struggle with.
When you said the coach, the advisor, and what's the third thing?
The third one,
you were
community.
Probably just going to say that. Okay.
So the third one's community, and I go into it more in my ebook. And the 4th one is the team. Of course, you got to have, who are you teaching?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who's the team? What are they producing? Okay.
You're right. Like, in the tech world, the reason, same thing, this team, they've got to have certain things, their outputs they have to do, and it's about like in every couple of weeks, or the way the new style is, which I shouldn't be saying anymore because I don't really know what I'm talking about. But
and the 5th thing is celebrations. It's so important to have celebrations. I did forget to say, when I said the advisor for the home education, in the tech world, they're called a product owner. Okay, sounds fancy, but it's the same thing. They are basically looking at the whole world, at the whole business world, everybody who's going to use that software product, and they're having conversations with all these people that are going to use that software. What do you want? What's most important to you? What should we work on? They do all this research, and they come back to the team and say, this is what you should do. Okay, that's it.
So the coach is that Scrum Master.
That's me. I'm the coach, and I help them. Yeah, I help them do the work.
And then the advisor is the
product owner. And he tells us what to work on.
Okay,
he or she. Yeah. What's the next, in my group, it's he, the next most important thing for them to work on. Yep.
Okay, and then you've got community. You want to make sure you're doing those celebrations because you've got to reward the good efforts. So your ebook covers all those different topics, right?
It does. But when you look at all these things that I'm covering, they help with those 3 biggest struggles. They help with relationships. Okay? They help reduce the power struggles and help with sibling relationships. That's all about the team. How is the team working together? And there's so many positive things that are taught through Agile, and that I just accidentally discovered as I was homeschooling my kids on helping them be a team together, and that team identity. And so that the relationships and the confidence that you can do it.
Yeah, well, that's just huge. And I know, again, you're a certified, say it again.
An Agile certified practitioner.
Yeah. And you've successfully homeschooled 5 kids that have done very, very well in advanced education. But also, besides that, you have also, in the past, you did work that was, you put together a number of videos or a number of things on science projects, because you dealt with science projects, and so many parents have struggled, as did I, with science projects. And I think you had so much, you were a parent, you were not a teacher, but you did so much that helped the teachers and helped families that you got an award as if you were a teacher from the school, didn't you?
From the state science fair.
From the state science fair. You were given an award that a teacher usually gets because you were a parent that so successfully helped us. So I say that because I want people to realize you really see some of these things, click into how this is helpful and make it simple, break it down, and people have done really well with it. You had, I mean, this was back years ago, and you had how many, like, I don't know, some crazy number of views back then?
I think it's maybe over 150,000 views, which isn't, was
that's
a lot back then.
Yeah, no, back then that was like 1 million or 5 million. Who knows?
And the award was actually Science Teacher of the Year, and I had to laugh because if you hear the way I do science, it just is so much easier than
so you got
the way.
A Science Teacher of the Year award, and you were not a teacher, but how you help people get this, and you got it from the state
science fair because I taught people how to help their kids do science fair projects.
Wow. So here's what you need to do. This is about Agile Homeschooling. You need to get her ebook. So again, info at
Agile Home Education, AGILE, home, spelled out, education.com.
Okay. So email Candice, get this information, stay in contact with her. She'll have more things down the road in the future. Candice, I love hearing about this. As soon as you really explained more to me, I said, okay, we need to do a podcast interview. So get a hold of this material. Candice is fantastic. She's got great results, and she's done it before. She's doing it again. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.